Well, that ties right into the question we didn't really build out the other day when I said, what's the purpose of writing? And for instance, what's the purpose of, quote, ologies? Meaning everything that we've created over thousands of years, the writing, the subjects, it's been great. It's wonderful. But
they were
now
the basis. They were the basis of this conversation right here, right now. In other words, everything that has happened before provided some basis of sifting and launching and becoming, so that we can have a leading edge conversation because of the platform from which we have all bounced.
Wow. So we're actually, people in this room, millions of people that have been benefiting from it, we are creating the new writings and the new institutions for the society that has already been created.
Yes, you are. And have you noticed? You are now reading what has been written before that you didn't understand at all, and now you get it. There were some tuned in, tapped in people hundreds of years ago who were writing things that people missed and misinterpreted altogether. So many flawed premises have been conjured since that now you are beginning with the basis of the laws,
right,
and you are coming into alignment with who you really are. Now as you read some of that, you say, woo, didn't see that in my freshman class.
Right. And that root thing is this concept that was removed when Jerry read his original book of that concept of vibration. In other words, it's taken like physics 100 years, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, to bring in some ways, the mass.
Well, you see what happens. Think about it. So it doesn't matter what time frame a human is living in, when think of Einstein or any like that, who got into the vortex because he really didn't care what the others thought. You know that if you've ever seen a picture of his hair. So he got in the vortex and had insight that his contemporaries couldn't follow. And that happened over and over and over again. And so now a lot of time passed. In other words, a lot of brilliance in art and in music and in science and even in medicine is not really understood by the masses enough that it can benefit the masses until many, 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 many years later. But this is the time of awakening. This is the time when more people are coming into the vortex, and so more people are, in that very literal sense, seeing the light. So it is making sense to more, which means we don't want you to be reliant on what has been written before. We want you to be current, present tense in alignment. We want you to live in this real time, of vibrational reality.
And I know you're going to do this, but just since you brought up Einstein and so forth, and it so ties into Integral and Ken Wilber and so forth. I mean, it's been said by individuals that he's doing for spirituality what Einstein did for physics. And he doesn't care, and he hasn't been part of the institutions, and on and on and on. And you're going to blow that away with your book. I have no doubt about that. But these things are just coming online, and I don't know, it's a little hard for me to think that all the writings of this man are so voluminous, it's hard to think this is in front of what he's written, because we get so much from writing, we get so much from it becomes ologies, it changes society.
Well, law of attraction always brings you to what you're ready for. And so that's why we have said to Jerry and Esther from the beginning, there is never a crowd on the leading edge. But more and more, there are more and more people becoming part of this leading edge. And the benefit to the greater society is that more and more people will experience the joy in the current life in which they are focused. Because there are a lot of people who have put wonderful things into this vortex because of their association with this life, but they are not going to reap the benefit of it because they are still more aware of what is, and therefore offering enough resistance that they don't get that euphoria, they don't get that exhilaration, they don't have those highs that formerly only those weird bird scientists who tapped in, or those martyred spiritualists. In other words, the masters that you revere are not that many, because the majority of people are bogged down in the vibration of reality, caring too much about the feedback that they are getting. And one of the things that has made this work satisfying to leading edge thinkers like you, and satisfying to teachers like us, is that there is not a concern about how it looks to others. Jerry and Esther said right from the beginning, we will not edit Abraham. We're not going to put words in their mouth, and we're not going to take words from their mouth. In other words, what Abraham expresses, we're going to trust, whether the world is ready for it or not. So there are a lot of people in influential places that could offer the benefit of this work if they were not concerned about how they would be regarded by others.
And so we also, as a collective, us not concerned, you are not concerned about categorizing, because that seems to be a lot of what writing does, what ologies do, is they put the labels on there, and it actually does seem to drop resistance, because we can work with it in our minds and cognitively.
Precisely, it gives you an orderly way to understand it.
Okay.
It gives you, and that is of value. Order. It is easier to understand in an orderly sense than in a chaotic sense. And so, but what we're really talking about, just replace.
But it's not the leading edge, is it? It's not. Once you start categorizing it, writing it down, this is the leading edge. These dialogues from non-physical to physical, between the physical and the non-physical, that is the leading edge. The rest is like a step-down vibrational version that helps bring others into the vortex, but it's not the leading edge.
We would agree with that. Louise Hay said to Jerry and Esther over a meal early on in their relationship, even before Hay House had asked to publish them, Louise said, I teach the babies. And what she meant by that was she offers it in an understandable format for those who are reaching from where they are. And Esther so loved the feeling that was emanating from Louise when she said it, because Esther knows that Louise knows, but she also knows that she is wise enough to consider that larger group. And then Esther said to Jerry, I don't want to teach the babies.
Oh, awesome.
I like the feeling of leading edge thinkers. It is exhilarating to gather together a group of people and talk about things that most of the world is not even wanting to discuss.
Yeah.
And realize that they are not only present, but they are listening, and not only listening, but they are vibrationally up to speed enough that when the new moving into the new place happens, we all go together.
Wow.
It is co-creating at its best.
And so
co-creating at its best, not teacher and student, not knowing and imparting, creating, co-creating, source energy, who you are, your inner being, the energy that creates world, that which man calls God, flowing through you, utilizing the information that you are providing by your experience and interaction within the variety in which you live, and moving it beyond deliberately. Oh, it moves beyond whether you know it does or not. It's just not satisfying if you don't know what's going on.
Well, to that point, as what's going on
this morning,
okay,
Esther said, she was sitting putting on her makeup, Jerry was in the bathtub, And Esther was thinking about dear friends last evening who had passed a little bag around that had some stones in them, that had some words written on them. And so it was a fun game, reach in and pick your stone. And Esther decided, as soon as she knew the game, to just reach in and grab the first one she touched. She wasn't going to feel around. She was just going to grab in and take the first one that she touched.
Last question.
And so she was contemplating that this morning, thinking about the precise moment in which she touched her stone that said success. And in that moment, from the bathroom, Jerry called out, "What was the stone that you pulled from the bag?" And Esther just screamed with delight. It happens all the time to them. But what is said to her, which is what we've been saying and is what we really want to impart, is that two people tuned in to who they are in the vortex, not having a conversation, law of attraction causing the cooperation to cause them to rendezvous at the precise mental place. All of the subjects that could be talked about. In other words, they'd been up for hours, there'd been a lot going on, but to rendezvous in that precise moment is just more of that evidence of the power of the law of attraction, yes, but more important, of the power of the vortex.
The power rendezvous, and there were a couple people who were talking just before this segment, and that'll be maybe the next segment, but is